What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Cjthecheesedj here, and today, guys, we're going over the TITANOCERATOPS for the Fjordur creature submission. So, guys, we have the concept art just here in front of us, and we also have the dossier, and I've got to say, this thing looks amazing. The actual artwork for it, the concept art, it looks freaking sick. I'm really a big fan, so shout out to the artist that did this. But we're going to be going over its abilities and how you would tame it and all that sort of stuff today. So let's jump straight into it and take a look at the post. Now, my submission for the next art vote is TITANOCERATOPS. I'm just going to skip that. Massive powerhouse of a ceratopsian, capable of easily destroying defenses, breaking through metal dino gates like a battering ram, ignoring all placed traps, and fighting off Ark's deadliest theropod, the Giga. Through a labor of love, I've designed not just a dossier, but actual in-game quality concept for this animal. Now, first off the bat, I'm not the biggest fan of this guy. I think we already have the Pachyrhinosaurus and the Trike. I don't think we need another Ceratops, but a Ceratopsian. But we'll see what this guy has to offer. So let's go over its abilities. Its main two damage abilities are dealing high amounts of damage to both creatures of higher drag weight and dealing high damage to gates and doors up to metal behemoth gates. So higher drag weight essentially means creatures that are bigger than it. So your Rexes, your Spinos, your Gigas, your Rock Elementals, all that sort of stuff. Brontos, and all that sort of stuff. So let's go over and see what the trade-off is. The trade-off for dealing damage to metal is that it must consume raw metal, around 5 to 10 metal per 5 seconds. It allows for a 30-second window to damage metal and has a cooldown that lasts for around a minute. Through a stance charge that makes it slower as a trade-off, similar to the Magmasaurus' smelting ability, minus the smelting. I don't know how I feel about that. While it does mediocre damage to metal structures in this state, it does high amounts of damage to doors and dino gates, making it effectively a battering ram. As for its Gigaslaying abilities, it will be able to resist its Gnash and deal higher damage to it than other creatures due to its increased drag weight damage. It's also particularly well protected from the front, having a high damage resistance to both its frill and legs. This paired with the anti-bleed effect and high health make it a great defense against Ark's largest and deadliest theropod. Now, the battering ram mechanic, I see it being a cool sort of style of going about it. I don't know how I feel about it eating metal. It eating metal it's a really weird factor considering it's a ceratopsian. And it wouldn't have the jaw density to eat metal. Like, these creatures were grazers. They would eat berries and plants and stuff like that. So I don't know how you would bring that into the design, but we'll keep going. Its other prime function is acting as a tower shield for large dinos up to the height of a Rex. It's great for effectively tanking huge amounts of bullets and explosives with little damage. In addition, when multiple Titanoceratops are near, they gain a herd buff that increases the damage resistance and gives a buff to nearby saddleless dinos. It, however, does not affect dinos with natural armor like the Reaper and Shadowmane. It can also pivot in place similar to a rock golem, allowing it to defend against attackers from any angle. Already, this guy seems very overpowered, so he's essentially a gigantic shield. He does kind of have the size similar to the Rex with the crest, so I can see how it would shield. I don't know how it's going to pivot on the spot. It's quadrupedal, so I don't know how it's going to pivot. Unless it goes on 2 legs. And its legs are reinforced as well. I don't think that's what it was suggesting, but yeah, I don't know how you can make it pivot on its design because it's not bipedal. Nonetheless, we'll keep going. Other major abilities of the TITANOCERATOPS are the resistance to all placed traps, such as bear traps or spike walls. Explosives placed on the ground also deal less damage to it. When the herd bonus is active, the eye spots on its frill appear and light up similar to the plate change on the TLC Stego. The rider sits on a saddle latched onto the back of its frill, allowing for a high vantage point across the battlefield. But they're still toying with the concept of adding a second rider on its back as a protective gunner. As for gathering, it's a fairly basic gatherer of wood, thatch, and berries, but has a very high weight and health, making a good, safe pack animal. The specific attacks are a horn swing that does a high amount of damage, a stance charge that transitions into its high metal damaging mode, and a short rem attack that thrusts the animal forward for a high knockback attack, good for pushing away enemies and damaging doors. Wild, so this is like its dossier thing. TITANOCERATOPS can be found around mountainous regions, usually around high concentrations of metal, either alone or in a small group. They are fairly peaceful unless provoked or attacked, similar to dire bears. They can easily contend with many of the region's predators like rexes and saber-tooths, although they are ignored by most small predators. They will ignore you while wearing ghillie, however they will become aggressive if approached too closely. In the wild, they also cannot damage metal but can damage stone structures. So your base isn't going to be protected from them, from wild ones by the sounds of it, so they can damage stone structures. So let's go over how you tame it. In order to tame a TITANOCERATOPS, you need either a catapult or cannon to knock it out. Great. It's one of these tames again. Likely on the back of a paracer or placed in a trap. They're not difficult to kite as they're not very fast, so they can be a good and less expensive option. But for those looking for a trap, they need to use metal structures. Bear traps are really advised as they essentially destroy them while walking over them and completely ignore its effects. As for taming food, you will need exceptional kibble or various crops and berries. They need a lot of food and narcotics, so pack a fair bit as this tame can wake up fairly quickly. Once tamed, they will act as a beast of burden, a powerful siege beast and living battering ram, a counter to various large creatures including gigas, and potentially a boss fighter. So it sounds like this guy is very strong and very powerful. Now, as for its weaknesses, while the TITANOCERATOPS is exceptionally powerful, it has its drawbacks. It can only fit through behemoth gates as its size is on par with a rex or mammoth. It's particularly slow, and while it can turn in place, it still can't outturn the faster mounts like raptors. In addition, it's a very slow swimmer and is not advisable to use around wet environments. Its backside is also fairly unprotected. Even with a saddle, hitting it from behind will deal massive amounts of damage to it. It's also very vulnerable from above and can be taken out by flyers with ease. The rider perched on the high saddle is vulnerable to being grabbed by flies and to sniper fire, being a particularly easy target. It's also fairly weak to fire weapons, flamethrowers, fire arrows, wyverns, and fire-pitched catapults. These will deal lots of damage to the creatures, more so than others. Now, the weaknesses, yeah, I agree with the weaknesses. Having these kind of weaknesses is a good idea, especially the back one, because if you've got such a strong front side, you get around that backside and you're screwed. So it sounds like quick fighting pack animals are going to be the way to bring these guys down if they do get implemented, like raptors or ravagers, anything fast that can kind of circle around it faster than it can turn. Also, how I said it can pivot. It can still pivot on four legs. It's just going to be, like the dossier said, slower. So it'll have to move a lot slower. But, I mean, I can still see it kind of working. So let's go over the final notes. I wanted the TITANOCERATOPS to fill the niche other Ceratopsian in Ark should have filled. Trikes and Pachyrhinos are particularly weak in game, and it bothers me that such powerful animals are ignored in favor of carnivores. I wanted a Ceratopsian that could defeat carnivores without breaking a sweat, and being large powerhouse players would use late game. These animals in real life were strong enough to fight off Tyrannosauruses and were true spectacles of both raw power and incredible diversity. They were truly the most impressive ornithochisians to existed. I also wanted to suggest a powerful and impressive creature that people would enjoy, something both striking and utterly massive. It was also a chance to flex my art skills at designing an Ark creature with both accurate anatomy and the signature Ark style. I've talked in the past about possibly applying for a job at Wildcard as a creature concept artist and wanted to prove myself that I was able to design something both devs and players would enjoy. I do not think I will apply as I still have a lot of learning to do, however this experience has been quite a trip and I'm happy that I got to share my labour of love with this wonderful and creative community. I hope you all enjoy, and if there's any suggestions or idea for them, leave them down in the comments. Now, we've also got a little bit of, it's a bit hard to see this image, some saddle concept ideas. So you can kind of see here, I do like the idea of the saddles for them. They do look pretty cool. Something like that, yeah. Except obviously it would probably have a higher crest and more of a sniper tower. But yeah, that's similar saddle design that we've got. Now, a couple of, I really think it's a good idea, a good concept. I like the crest eyes. They look really cool. I don't know. I feel like it would be a really good creature to add to the game. I think having it as a Giga Killer might be a little bit overkill. I think having it as a herbivore that can definitely like pulverize carnivores is a good idea. Not so much the Giga Killer, because Gigas don't really have any other niche in the game. They already get heavily countered by rhinos, so having another creature that can counter them kind of seems like you would just get rid of Gigas completely kind of thing. I don't know. I feel like this is a cool creature. Having another really large ceratopsian in the game, though, I don't know about that. And the fact that it can destroy metal as well would really tip the PvP aspect. But once again, this isn't like final, so obviously the devs would go over this and change some stuff to how they want it to fit the game. But I do like the design of the creature. It's awesome. Shout out to the artist for it. I can definitely see it having a place in the game of Ark. You can see here, like, having a herd of them, and like they've made like a little shield barrier. It looks really cool. I definitely see it having its uses, but let me know what you guys think about this down below in the comments, and if you enjoy it, don't forget to vote for it. So guys, that's going to wrap the video up for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you in the next one.